Do you want to farm the mob in Minecraft that has the largest loot table of any other mob in the game? Well, this tutorial's for you. Farming witches is a great way to get tons of different items, including various different types of potions, redstone, glass bottles, spider eyes, sugar, and most importantly, gunpowder, which can be used as a good source of rockets, amongst even more drops. And believe it or not, this is all you need, so let's take a look at how it works. So, breaking into the farm ever so slightly to show you how it works in more detail, a witch will actually spawn on this block right here, which is actually the original block from the witch hut. You don't have to keep the original one, but I just have because I like to. We then have this piece of glass here, and because the witch is actually spawning with this piece of glass in the head, they get pushed off into this water stream. We also have this piece of coral fan to actually make sure that any other mobs that may spawn, like spiders, walk off, or baby zombies. The witch will then go into this water stream where it will get into this minecart. Now, if I hadn't have picked it up, there will be a trident right there. And flicking on this lever, you can see there that activates the trapdoor trident killer, killing basically any mobs that actually get in there. So as you can see there, I just summoned in a witch and it died really quickly. Now, one thing to point out is that you can see there is some XP that has built up there. If I actually walk away, you can see that somehow, magically, the XP has still built up, and it is very clearly not trying to get to me anymore because I'm out of its range. If we actually head back to it, then you can see that you cannot pick up this XP. You can turn off this Trident killer, and yeah, this XP, you can't pick up this XP, and this is actually a bug. So, if we actually head up to the top here, where the XP will travel up the water stream, you can see there that is our AFK spot. If you listen out, then you can hear that you'll actually pick up XP. That's because when XP is pushed around in water in the current update, it visually doesn't appear that it's being pushed, when in actual fact it is. So visually, the XP appeared down there, when in reality it was up there, and obviously you just heard it going into my inventory or whatever. So do bear that in mind, that whilst you visually won't be able to see the XP traveling up, you will still gain levels from this, and you will still be able to hear it. But anyway, on to the actual AFK spot now. So as you can see here, we just have a very simple AFK spot with a couple of chests up here. You can build your own type of storage if you want to. One of the important things about this is we actually have this water stream that goes above the player. This means that the XP goes directly above you and actually is able to get into you, giving you levels. As well as that, because you have a block above your head, phantoms shouldn't be able to spawn if you AFK here. Now, using Foxy No-Tail's Marcus Pack add-on, you can see here that the AFK spot is positioned in such a way so that pretty much the only mobs that are actually able to spawn are witches. You may have to do some minor mob proofing to the actual ground down here, but because it's in a swamp, it likely won't be that much, since witch huts are actually built obviously above ground on water a little bit. So yeah, overall it is just a really simple farm, and really quite cheap as well. Now, because the farm uses a trident killer, you will of course get the looting effect if you hold a looting 3 sword as well, which greatly increases the rate that you are going to be getting from this farm, giving you even more drops and experience. So I think it's time that we actually get into the tutorial now of how to build this farm. But first, the materials list. So firstly, the materials list. Now, there will be a full materials list in the description down below, and also if I miss anything, it will be updated. If you notice that there is something that I've missed that I haven't updated in the description, then please do let me know and I'll, well, update the description. But anyway, the materials for this farm that you're going to need to build it are 3 stacks of glass, a stack and 37 of tinted glass, 15 packed ice, 3 solid blocks of any type, 3 oak trapdoors, 2 observers, 1 lever, 1 button, 1 sticky piston, 1 ladder, which you may not need, but it's still kind of useful to have just in case, 1 coal fan. I have a coal fan farm linked in the description, and it has to be a coal fan, 1 soul sand, 1 minecart, a temporary piece of rail, a trident, and then either some ice or just a water bucket and kelp, so that you can actually make a bubble column, and you'll also need some water for water streams and things like that. And of course, all the materials for your own storage system, because most people like to build their own storage system. So yeah, you can use your own materials for that. That's not included in this list. And of course, if you want to expand the AFK platform as well, then yeah, that's also not included in this list. So the first step is pretty important, and it's to find yourself a witch hut. If you already know where a witch hut is, then you can skip this next step, but if you don't know where a witch hut is, I'm going to show you a very useful resource. So linked in the description, there will be an app called Chunkbase, and scrolling down on the apps section, if you actually click on the witch hut, you can then type in your seed. Make sure you have Bedrock 1.18 selected, because this is of course a Bedrock Edition farm, and it will show you all of the witch huts on your world. And if you actually type in the coordinates here, then it will also show you where that coordinate is, so that you can then find the nearest witch hut to where you are. So all of these purple dots are actually witch huts. So if you just double click on one, then this box down here will change to the coordinates of where the witch hut is. You can then head over there and then you'll of course have a witch hut that you can turn into a witch farm. So anyway, let's get back into the proper tutorial. As I say, this will be linked to the description. So first of all, once you actually have your witch hut, I would recommend just removing any trees that are too near to it, especially like that one there. This isn't a necessity, it's just going to make building the thing so much easier. Now this resource pack will be linked in the description, but Mad Hatter's technical resource pack for Bedrock Edition allows you to really easily find the witch hut spawning spot by placing down an armor stand and giving it some sugar. So we can see here that this block is actually the spawning spot for this witch hut. I understand that you may be on a platform that cannot use resource packs like this, so don't worry, I'll show you how to find it without using one. Also bear in mind that I do believe it actually changes each time. I'm pretty sure it's not always the same. It's actually dependent on the chunk and not the actual witch hut position, so also bear that in mind. So anyway, if you're on a platform where you cannot actually install custom resource packs and cannot get the Bedrock technical resource pack, then you're simply going to want to remove all of these walls, and you're going to have to do this anyway, so you might as well remove these walls. But you're going to need to make sure to keep in this floor as well, and also these pillars, because they're just kind of useful to have. And then what you're going to need to do is basically fill up all of this area with glass panes, or you can also just use some iron bars. What this is going to do is show us exactly where the witches are actually spawning. So either setting the time to night or just waiting until it's night on survival. If you walk away far enough, then eventually you should actually get a witch spawning. And as you can see right there, a witch has finally spawned now. In fact, multiple witches have spawned. It looks like we've got like 2 or 3 in there, which is pretty good, as well as a skeleton. So if you now actually remove all of the glass other than the ones surrounding the witches, and I don't think they'll be able to attack you in survival because they're of course locked in from this glass, which is good. Now, you may think that you figured out where the witch spawning spot is, but you actually have not. Reason for that is because, as you can see, they have spawned in between 4 different blocks. So you're now going to need to pull out a locator map. And using this, you're going to need to figure out which direction is the northwest, which is, of course, this direction, because this way's north, this way's west. So in between that is northwest. This is because mobs in Bedrock Edition actually spawn on the northwest of a block. So because we know this direction is actually northwest, then we're going to need to turn 180 degrees to southeast. And the southeast block, which is this one, is actually your witch's spawning spot. So you can kill all of these. And what I'd actually recommend doing is just marking this out temporarily with a block so that you don't accidentally destroy it. So this is actually where the witches will spawn, and they will spawn on the northwest of this block, which is why they spawned inside of this thingy. These glass panes. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And to confirm this, if we use the resource pack again, you can see here that the spawn spot is in fact in that space. So yeah, this is definitely correct. You can also use coordinates to figure out which direction is northwest or southeast, I guess is really what you want to know. But yeah, anyway, the easiest way in my opinion is just to use a locator map. So it isn't exactly a necessity, however, I would just recommend completely removing the rest of the witch hut other than the spawn spot that you probably just marked out. The reason for this is you don't really have to keep any of the witch hut. It kind of gets in the way of building the farm if you do keep the witch hut. Of course, you can keep the witch hut if you want to, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to remove it because I like having lots of space. So if you do end up actually removing the witch hut, then now is probably a good time to replace the spawn spot back in with the spruce wood planks. I don't think it has to be spruce wood planks. I do know there have been bugs in the past though where it has had to be and things like that. I would recommend just keeping it as that just in case. But anyway, you're going to need your locator map again, and if you pull it out and then make sure you're facing west, which I obviously am right now. If you're walking in the west direction, then your X coordinate will also go down, so that's another way that you can figure out if you are actually looking in the right way or building in the right direction. And you're going to want to place a temporary block followed by a piece of glass and then remove that temporary block. Then you're going to want to pull out your tinted glass and place one piece of tinted glass on the back of your spawn spot, and then 3 above it. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to want to go 2 below. 1, 2. So coming around to one of the sides, it doesn't really matter if you place one tinted glass on the edge of your normal glass and then one on top of that, and then basically fill this all the way down so that it's in line with the other wall that you built. And then go 1, 2, 3 blocks across and basically fill all of this in as a solid wall. You're then going to want to fill in the corner on this side, but leaving 2 blocks down here at the bottom because you don't really need to fill in there. And then if you do exactly the same on the other side as well, like so, then you should end up with something like this. You can also add a roof onto it now. There we go. So now I'd recommend pulling out your coral fan and placing it on the spawn spot block. It's going to instantly turn into a dead coral fan if it isn't already. This is so that mobs will obviously pathfind off it if things like spiders or baby zombies spawn. So if you are building this in the air or you aren't already on the floor, then I would actually recommend filling in these blocks, and it will also help with counting. So 1, 2, 3, and these need to be solid blocks if you are obviously building this in the air if your witch hut is generated weirdly or something. Otherwise, you can just leave it as grass blocks though if it is level with the floor like mine is. Now in my case, I'm actually going to need to remove a couple of blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks are going to need to remove, and then actually a 5th one as well. And then you're going to want to place in your tinted glass here, here, and here. And then 1, 2, 3, and then fill in the tinted glass there on both sides like so. You're then going to need to pull out your packed ice and count 1, 2, 3, and then place in the packed ice there. So 3 blocks of packed ice right there. And then on the end, add in your button as well. This is where your water stream will be. And then on this piece of dirt block, you can actually have some soul sand as well, or you will need soul sand. So on either side, it doesn't really matter. I personally like to do it on this side. You're going to want to place in a temporary block here, and then a piece of tinted glass, and then another piece of tinted glass there. Then you can remove that temporary block. You're then going to want to pull out your trapdoors and place one trapdoor on the edge of that block, one trapdoor on top of it, of course crouching so you can actually place it, and then one trapdoor on the edge of that, and then flick it up like so. And then you can also put in a bucket of water right there as well. If you then climb out of this thing, and you can kind of do the trick there with the trapdoor, if you do need to get out of this, you can then place in your rail and then your minecart, and then water right on the end right there. And what should happen is the minecart actually flows right to the end of that trapdoor without falling down the hole. And also if you put any items down there, then they should end up down in the ice section, which they have. So now you're going to want to place water inside here, and to do that you may have to temporarily break some stuff, but there we go. Just place a water source there as well, and then you can replace that tinted glass if you did break it. And you might as well also put the 3 tinted glass in there just to build this up to make it all level. And now what you're going to want to do is place in a solid block right here, and make sure it's the block that this trapdoor is sort of connected to. And then above it, you should have some sort of hole like this. So if you actually place in 2 pieces of tinted glass right there to stop the sunlight from getting in, or of course a solid block. And you're then going to need to pull out one of your observers, and this may be hard in survival, but you're going to need to place it facing downwards like so that the face is pointing towards this block. You're then going to need to head underneath here and place in another observer facing upwards on that block right here. And then you're probably going to have to use some temporary blocks, but you're going to need to place in a sticky piston facing into that observer like that. And you can also put your lever on it like that. So now if you flick this, then everything in there should now be dark, and you should also see that that trapdoor begins flicking up and stuff. So just unpower that piston again to turn off the farm. This is your on and off switch. So heading around to the other side that does not have your sticky piston now, you're going to want to place a solid block here, and then a temporary block here, and then a solid block here, and remove that. and then placing a ladder on that solid block. This is so that you can actually climb up, or you probably won't need a ladder depending on what height. Like right now, obviously I won't need a ladder to get up, but depending on what height you may need a ladder. And then if you actually stand on this block, this is where you'd actually throw in your trident. So when you're stood on this block, you are able to throw the trident, and the sort of area that you're aiming for when throwing the trident is sort of the top section of the trapdoor, sort of on that wooden sort of bit where my crosshair is. So if you throw it in there, then that's absolutely perfect. Now bear in mind, it is very likely that you'll have to re-throw the trident basically every time this area gets unloaded. That's just an issue with this type of trident killer, not much I can do about it. To pick up the trident killer, if you actually walk into the corner, then you should just be able to pick it up. That's obviously something to be careful of on your way down as well. It can be a bit finicky at first to get it actually right if you haven't done it before, but after a while you do kind of get used to, you know, where you need to throw it into and how to aim properly and stuff. But yeah, just make sure it's not too far forward and not too far backwards. And obviously, don't do what I did there and pick it up on your way down. So now you're going to add in more tinted glass. And this will actually be for where you have your bubble column sending all the items to your storage. So you're going to want to build up on the 4 sides of where the bubble column will be with tinted glass or solid blocks until you're basically level with the rest of the farm like I am now. So that's about the height that you need to go. You don't need to go any higher. This just ensures that no light is let through into the actual spawning area. And whilst this is probably more tinted glass than you'll actually need, it's better to be on the safe side. Also, in my opinion, it does kind of look nice having them both line up like this. So now you're going to need to count up 41 blocks in glass or in solid blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. A good way to do this is to actually use your coordinates. So if you stand on top of the tinted glass, then you could see right now I personally am on y equals 69. So you could also add 41 to 69, which equals 110. And you can actually see here, if I stand on this glass, it is y equals 110. So that is also an easier way for you to count in case you do mess up the actual counting. But anyway, you're going to want to do this on all of the 4 sides. So at the top of your glass pillar that you've just constructed now, you're actually going to want to remove this block and this block of the pillar that is pointing towards your actual witch hut, and then place in a piece of packed ice. You're then going to want to place 8 more packed ice in the direction of your witch hut, so that direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this may be a bit hard in survival if you don't actually have an elytra or anything like that, or scaffolding, but 4 blocks below this ice path is where you can actually place in your AFK platform. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 4th, there we go, you can do it there. So this is the AFK platform. So you're going to want to align it with the witch spawning spot. So you can see here, X equals 1379 and Z equals 1204. You're going to want to make sure to align this with whatever block you want. I like to use glass, but this is the exact spot that you're going to need to AFK at. So just make sure it's exactly above the spawning spot. And of course, you can fill this out however you like with blocks or whatever. And up here is also where your storage will be. I would recommend making sure it is spawn proof though, because if any mobs spawn on it, and obviously they may kill you whilst you're AFK, and they'll also decrease the rates of your farm. But anyway, this is actually the AFK platform. You're going to want to continue on with the storage. So we're just going to put in 2 walls of glass like this either side of the packed ice. And now is a good time to actually make the water column for this. So the way I do this is heading down to the bottom, and if you have a silk touch pickaxe, or you may just have to break it and replace it. If you don't, I would recommend just breaking those blocks and heading in here. If I can actually head in here, there we go, and then filling in those blocks again, and then pulling out either some water or some ice, making sure each of these blocks in here are actually water source blocks. You're going to want to, well, place in some water. As I say, it has to all be water source blocks, otherwise this bubble column will not work. So if you're in creative, then you can just hold down, right click, and yeah, it kind of does it for you. If not, then you can actually use some ice, or you can fill it up with flowing water and then fill it up with kelp to turn it all into source blocks. And there we go. If we place the top one, you'll notice that it should flow until 2 blocks at the end, which is exactly what we want. Well, it might not be exactly what you want. I guess it depends on how you're making your storage, but for me, it is exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do now is just build some storage. You can build it literally however you want. It's up to you. I would recommend having some sort of item filter because you do get a surprising amount of items from this. So there we go. That's just some temporary storage right there. Or not temporary, that's just some storage. As I say, I would strongly recommend building whatever storage you want to build because, yeah, that's not really the best and not really good enough for this farm, honestly. But anywho, it will be good enough for this tutorial. So obviously, you're going to want to make sure that the glass actually wraps around that so that you don't have items falling off the edge or anything like that. And then you're also going to want to make sure to put a roof over the top of your bubble stream or water stream to actually stop items from bouncing up and out when they go up the water column. And congratulations, that is actually your farm completely done now. If you want to, you could add in a sticky piston with loads of slime blocks on it or something to have the on and off switch actually be up here. So as I mentioned earlier, to use this farm, all you got to do is simply make sure the trident is freshly thrown in there from the last time you loaded the chunks, and then flick this lever and witches should start spawning. So let's test it. Okay, so I have just set game rule do mob spawning to true, and yeah, you can see there that there are actually witches in there and that they are spawning and stuff, which is obviously good news. And in a second, well, you can already see the drops coming through, and in a second we should also start to hear some XP coming into our inventory. There's actually a bug where XP travels slower in water than items do, and how it's meant to do. That's a bug. So yeah, XP won't actually be coming up with your items. It will be coming up a bit slower, but we should hear some XP sounds eventually. And yeah, obviously, we can see that witches are spawning. It works during the day, which is good. It means all of our lighting is correct. I just heard some XP come into my inventory. And yeah, overall, that means this farm is actually working, which is great. And if we look in here, there we go. We've already got some drops. Now, if you want the best possible rates for this farm, then holding a looting 3 sword is also recommended so that you can have the looting 3 effect applied when using this farm. Now, one other thing to quickly point out is that you cannot leave this farm on and like unload the chunks. You need to make sure that when this farm is turned on, that these chunks are actually loaded by a player for the farm to work. And if you do unload the chunks, then the trident is likely to fall through, breaking the minecart and causing you to have to rebuild that sort of area, which is not particularly ideal. And with all trident killers, if the player is not online that threw the trident, then XP will not be dropped. Likewise, the player that threw the trident has to also be holding the looting 3 sword. So whoever uses this farm, you're going to need to make sure to tell them to rethrow the trident. So if you have any comments or questions or even improvements for this farm, then joining my Discord is a great place to do it in. If you also don't understand anything about the tutorial or anything like that, then I would strongly recommend joining my Discord. Once again, we have help channels in there for you to ask your questions and that sort of thing, and we have a lot of big brain people in there that will probably be able to answer them. There will also be a world download linked in the description if you are interested, which also may help you in building this farm as well. So yeah, do make the most of that. But other than that, that's going to be it for today's Minecraft Bedrock Edition tutorial. So thank you ever so much for watching. If you're interested in more Minecraft Bedrock Edition content like this, then please do subscribe today to join the Alien Empire. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video coming very soon. Bye.